AAA. Used by big publishing companies to denote that a game has a big budget, big marketing, and overall bigger than anything a small company could do. But that wasn't all, as this buzzword turned red flag wasn't only supposedly assigned to gamers they'd be getting their money's worth, but most importantly, to the publishers, a buzzword for their investors, to tell them this was a low-risk investment. But with the rise of the indie scene, I wonder, will we continue to see the same AAA titles for the next 10 years? Or will we continue to have to deal with the many ways these businesses will try and squeeze every last penny out of both the players and their own staff? Or will indie take back gaming using the principles it was founded on, to force publishers to change their money-driven ways? So buckle up, because Mayday, it's gay. And let's find out if we're really witnessing the death of AAA. So, what games are AAA? Well, if all they need to qualify as a AAA game is being high profile with a big budget on the game and its marketing while being produced by a large company, that does broaden the term a lot. Because by that definition, pretty much anything made by EA, Microsoft, or any of the other 1,000 publishers could use this term. So while Star Wars Jedi Survivor and Apex Legends are considered AAA, so is The Sims. And out of those three, all published by EA, only one should really be considered AAA.
You have failed me for the last time.
Which is why I think it's a good thing a lot of people don't think much of AAA games in the modern day, when it's advertised as such, because all that it does is act as a cheap imitation of a genre, where this is meant to tell us it is polished both visually and in its gameplay. But it's fundamentally useless, because unlike other medias, like movies or anime, where the animation studios or film studios have a certain set of skills and a style that sets them apart from others, one may be better at dynamic fights. One might have breathtaking visuals that stun you with the level of detail, making the world feel more alive, while another has the most faithful designs to the media they are portraying. But when it comes to video games, all the publishers really do is front the bill. They provide the developers with the equipment to make the returns, similar to taking a loan, but instead of just paying back the publisher once they have made what they owe, the publishers, they then own those companies, continuing to quote-unquote fund those developers, with only a fraction of the money the game's made. And from an outsider looking in, it looks exactly like Lester's cut in GTA 5. Oh, you took all the risk with your life on the line for this? Well, I paid for gas, so that's at least a 60% cut for me. Oh, by the way, I own you now. So keep making me money, otherwise I'll make sure you don't have a job anymore.
Oh, your half! There is no your half of the money! There is only my all of it, do you understand? Why should I be penalized because of your sloppiness?
Do you see how controlling and messed up that is? Meanwhile, indie titles are either passion projects with singular or small teams of devs working on their projects in their free time, less for the money and more for the fun of creating, which often means they have a job outside of making games and don't have to worry about a lot of people buying and playing their games. Then there are the smaller companies who are completely self-sufficient, like Pocket Pair, where they are similar to a dev team who works for a publishing company. They are skilled, knowledgeable, and equipped enough to do it all by themselves. But this does mean while they take all the profits, they also take a significantly higher risk, because if their game flops, they're more likely at risk of financial troubles and much less job security, possibly facing pay cuts, future titles being cancelled, or even worse, layoffs.
We've been tricked, we've been backstabbed, and we've been quite possibly bamboozled.
So, is it safer to be indie, or to sell your soul? Well, it's not exactly clear, as while the wider gaming market has expanded, publishers have seen this growth. And in the past couple of years, they've wanted to keep growing it, exponentially, to increase their profit margins even greater each and every time. Not content with turning a profit, but instead so desperate to increase the billions they make each year into even more billions. And if they're unsustainable to do that, through their games with loot boxes, premium cosmetics, battle passes every couple of months, then as a developer, your job is at risk. And we've seen this with teams that have joined publishers, only to be closed down, with some staff laid off, while others reassigned to completely different projects. But while I can't find any sources for indie teams going bankrupt or experiencing layoffs, which does happen, usually it's because they are factually unable to afford it, not because it's affecting profit margins. To put it in perspective, two of the greatest indie games made in recent years, Baldur's Gate 3 and Palworld, both had their own financial struggles, with Pocket Pair almost using their entire budget, unsure if they'd make a game before running their small funds dry. All we have to do is release the game before the bank account is zero and the company goes bankrupt. And Larian Studios going nearly bankrupt 10 separate times since 1999, still managing to keep their team despite that, as they found ways to keep themselves afloat. Both studios believed in their teams and their vision. Pocket Pair said, for companies big and small, just finishing the development of a game is an accomplishment. However, the big companies end up putting up passively interesting games by not challenging themselves and not taking risks. While Larian has been credited for their refusal to substitute quality, only ever wanting to raise that bar in future. But also, the founder and CEO of Larian said on a panel,
And post 2010, we took our fate in our own hands and we started self-publishing our games. And so Larian has always been a company that tried to reach for the sky and often crashed, and that's where all the bruises come from. But we never gave up, we kept on trying, and that has led to, I have to say, a very successful last 5 years.
So the argument should be indie would be much higher risk, and AAA should not be experiencing the quick turnovers and layoffs they have been in the past 4 to 5 years. But if you look at the most popular games now, I'd have to argue the complete opposite, which leads me into the most important part of the video, the games. Video games are arguably the most creative industry imaginable, and that kind of makes sense, as they are literally creating a new world from scratch for you to interact with. Whether it's indie or AAA, a ton of work goes into these projects to come out the way they do for the players. Whether it's 4K ultra graphics all the way to stylized pixel art, or the music design being fully fledged songs, or thematic music to the location or event. I could go on, but the point is if your game is big or small, there's a lot that goes into them. But if we look at the variety of these titles, it paints quite a clear picture of the direction AAA has gone. You'll notice the reoccurring names, and you'll notice that they are all free to play. But while they're the most played, they aren't the best rated, most of the time having mixed reviews. But then those full price games made by developers backed by publishing companies either have very positive or overwhelmingly positive reviews. And the same goes for indie games. Most indie games don't ask for the same $60 price tag, instead ranging from a few bucks to no more than 20, still managing to get really good reviews. So why is that? Well, I think it has to do with the difference on how games used to be made versus how they are now. So if we look at each one of these as if they're their own medium to see what they have to offer, with a full price AAA game, you get stuff like The Last of Us.
Oh, why are these all stuck together?
God of War.
Get in the boat, boy. Boy, this way, boy.
Cyberpunk, GTA, Red
We
Dead,
just need money.
Assassin's Creed, Borderlands, Titanfall 2, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Games with good stories that keep you invested in the characters, beautiful graphics with styles mostly ranging from realism and fantasy realism, and a large world you can explore with minimal bugs, details in the littlest of things, and fun, engaging gameplay, with mechanics near exclusive to their franchise, or altered in such a way that they feel unique to the other games with similar mechanics. This mixture of efforts is what has always justified a game's price, and if that's too much for you, you just have to make the choice to wait and see if it goes on stale. But regardless, 99% of these titles didn't have microtransactions to keep them funded. Sure, some would later have DLC content added, but it wasn't necessary to play the game, and they were a fraction of the price of these base games. these are the games that should be defined as AAA. Simply put, a big-scale game that is polished upon release. Then, there are your indie alternatives. They may not be as much of a spectacle in terms of being refined to the point of realism, but with games like Undertale, Terraria, Stardew Valley, most simulator games, Hollow Knight, Palworld, and many more, while you do also get some more AAA-like indie games, like Baldur's Gate.
It's not you understand. It's me. I have standards.
Indie doesn't let any genre of gaming go unattended or cared for, as there is a game for anyone, whether it's puzzle, horror, open world, story-driven, or casual. There's always gonna be people developing a game for it, and in one of many styles, like pixel art to 3D low polygon, covering a vast majority, but also realistic and cartoonish. Understandably, most of these games aren't polished like the ones with a $60 price tag, but they understand that. They're a smaller team with less funding and resources to perfect their game before release. Some do release polished, but aren't so large scale, while some are large scale and have game-breaking bugs. It's a trade-off. These dev teams or even solo devs have to make. But in spite of that, they will continually update their games to improve it for the player's benefit and for their own satisfaction. And that's one of the best things about indie devs. It's a level of open communication you can have with them and they can have with you. So if you mention a bug you found to them, you can expect an update resolving that issue fairly quickly. And then the worst of the worst, the bottom of the barrel, the runt of the litter, the scraps of the dinner plate.
Yes, get on with it!
And another set of buzzwords to add to the likes of AAA that are bigger red flags than naming your company after one of the most hated characters in your games. Free to play and live service. I put those in quotation marks, not just because they're the words coming out of my mouth, but because are they really? You see, free-to-play games have quickly grown this bad air around them, and yet they don't seem to be going anywhere. Well, let's compare. Unlike indie and full-price games, there's no initial investment for players. Simply download the game and you're good to go. And that's great. But isn't that why demos exist? Or at least existed? They're much less common now, and I think that is partially due to free-to-play joining the fray. But most of these AAA games, as much as their work is great, they're really nothing special. Not at least when compared to indie and fully fledged games. Most being hero and or shooter games, either being team-based or battle royale. This is the most variety you'll see out of the average big-budget free-to-play game, with Apex Legends, Overwatch 2, Destiny, Marvel Rivals, Call of Duty Warzone, and Halo Infinite. Which in addition, each of these free-to-play games being so similar, any semblance of an argument to this take of them being basically the same is backfired by most of them implementing the same features each game does, either in their hero abilities, character stories and designs, or in gameplay features which would make these copycats more unique and interesting compared to the rest. But no, because once one has a unique feature, it's slapped with a different texture and added to all the other free-to-plays in the same genre. So, with indie having fast open communications and a bigger variety, while full-price games are polished straight from the get-go, with both having minimal microtransactions, what benefits do free-to-play bring? Nothing. Free-to-players, with some exceptions, have very limited communication, with updates few and far between, often waiting months for bugs to be fixed, but also exploits that make this already overused genre even more dull than it already is, and updates every couple of months on an unpolished game doesn't make it feel like live service, as most games would do these updates anyway, regardless of if it's indie or AAA. The live in live service should imply as soon as a patch or bug is fixed, the update, big or small, should immediately be sent out, and not waiting till the next big event to roll them out. And since these games are easy access, this also means games like this are most plagued by cheaters, because making a new account costs nothing, and there's no real consequences for their actions because of this. But I don't want to perpetrate the idea that these devs are lazy or don't care, because that generally isn't the case. What happens is where an indie developer, once an issue is brought to their attention, it swiftly gets fixed. For these devs working for a publisher, they have to go through several chains of leadership to roll out an update that could have just been 10 small lines of code. But also, fixing the game isn't the publisher's prerogative. Making money for themselves and their investors is.
We just need money.
Which is another reason why this type of AAA is killing it for gamers as a collective. Because the publisher holds all the power. Since they are the ones funding the game, they decide what gets added, and that's exactly why these games are just glorified scams. Because the developers, the people who make these games for the audience they know how to appeal to, don't get the final say. Which is why all of them are filled with loot boxes, battle passes, bundles, exclusive skins, exotics, premium currency, another battle pass, a mini battle pass, restricted color wheels, and Nicki fucking Minaj.
Playtime is over when Nicki drops in.
Using any and all ways to drain your pockets for the most money with the least effort. And I'm no saint in this. I probably could have bought over 10 full price games for the amount I've spent on cosmetics in 1 or 2 of these games. Possibly spending more, but it's no secret the reason they do this. The reason this is so popular. Because it works. These games and the things that are implemented prey on our minds when we are most vulnerable. Either after coming home from school or a long day at work. We're drained. And gaming is where most of us turn to shut it all off. And they prey on that. There are some videos that go over this pretty well and in depth, but the key things I want to bring up is the sunken cost fallacy, but also DLC and progression systems versus battle passes. So firstly, sunken cost fallacy. You might be familiar with this as I mentioned it briefly in my Apex Legends video, but in short, it's the psychological effect that makes it hard to break away from things you've invested in, whether that's with time or with money. So if you've invested either of these things, or even both, it makes it that much harder to pull away from a game, even if you start to find that you hate the direction it's taking. Which they also tie in beautifully with the fear of missing out. With limited time events, exclusive items, or skins, if you've put all this time and money into the game, you can't miss these events, because you don't want to be left behind, while everyone else has the brand new toys. Therefore, you spend more time and more money, further allowing these type of games to grip onto you and stop you from finding something better. Now for the other key point, DLC and progression systems versus battle passes. Back in ye olden days, where we thought the next Xbox would be the 720, I want to compare modern customizations to 2 AAA games made 15 years ago. Halo Reach and Call of Duty Black Ops. Which may not be fair, but I will reiterate, they were made 15 years ago. So surely they can't be as fair and customizable as these newer AAAs. Which, if you can't see where this is going, I sincerely hope you're never allowed a credit card.
Because I have $30,000 in credit card debt.
Both these games had their own progression systems, with ranks to show your dedication, and not just an arbitrary number to the title, but a rank that made you feel more like a soldier in these games, while also still giving you that recognition. But more importantly, they both had their own earnable credits, which allowed you to unlock new customizations, personalizing your armor if you wanted to be more bulky like George, or stealthy like June in Halo, or weapons if you had more fun quickscoping or running and gunning with SMGs in COD, and even logos, to give yourself your own identity. But don't let me speak on behalf of these big companies. Let them do it themselves.
Customization and personalization, these were 2 very important design agendas for us in this game. We really wanted to make the player feel like they were making the game their own. Everything that relates to customization in our game has a currency price associated with it. The whole system is designed to give players freedom of choice to decide how they want to spend their currency.
The currency system is a little different from purely just a level system. So in previous games, you would unlock all content based on your level. So as you progress through the ranks, you'd unlock, say, a perk. In the currency system, what happens is you unlock the main feature. So you'll unlock something like kill streaks or perks, and that unlocks all of them all at once. You then use the currency to purchase what you want from that category.
Currency is a multiplayer-only feature. It is something you earn at each rank progression. You also earn currency at the end of a match as a match bonus.
Yeah, boy.
With currency, you can buy weapons, weapon attachments, camo skins, customized red dot reticles. You can buy the ability to place your clan tag on your weapon. You can buy perks, you can buy kill streaks. Everything in the game is purchasable through the currency system.
It allows you to play the game the way you want to play it. Especially the first-person shooter gamer, they really want to create their own online identity, and we're allowing them to do that now.
There are 40-plus weapons in Create a Class inside of Black Ops, and all of them have some level of customization.
The emblem editor can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. A player might choose just one icon that they like to represent them, and that keeps it very simple. But for somebody who's got particular creative skills or artistic skills, they can create some pretty advanced looking images.
It doesn't have any boundaries. It's completely limitless, the kind of ideas that you can come up with for creating your own online identity.
And then there are optional things like DLCs, which, while it too had its issues back in the day, is definitely better than the alternative. But if you look at most things now, almost all of it is locked and limited to paywalls. Hell, you can't even pick your own colors anymore without dropping a couple bucks. It's ridiculous. Furthermore, the prices of these cosmetics are hyperinflated. Most single skins running you around $15, 1/4 of a full price game, and between 1 to 2 indie games. Whereas if you charge less, say $2 to $3, not only would they still make profit, but I reckon they would profit more so. And for the benefit of everyone. Sure, they wouldn't be able to prey on the exclusivity of a cosmetic as much, but as we've seen, they don't care about that, as they re-release skins all the time. So offering them significantly cheaper would still support the game, the devs, the publishers, and the players would have less to complain about. So just to be clear, with $60 in either indie, AAA full price, or free-to-play AAAs, you can get this, or this. And mind you, while technically you're allowed to get as many games as you wanted, you're really only likely to spend your time and money on one of them. So, to bring this video to a close, do I think AAA has come to an end? No. But do I think the label is dying? Yes. It's been losing its meaning with almost every new cash grab game added. Not representing the same games it once did, becoming more generalized with publishers pumping money and advertising in more for the sake of keeping players hooked to their mass mental manipulating microtransactions, and less because they have a big project they truly believe in. But thankfully games like these make themselves pretty obvious in how they're supposed to be cash cows, made for the publishers and investors rather than because it's a game the devs wanted to make and have the final say in. So, don't support these scummy business tactics, support the real AAAs and indie devs, because they put so much more care and thought into their games, but also because then hopefully the publishers will see the shift in their sales and change to make their games based on the same morals and values the gaming space was built around. So, Mayday, it's K, and
That's why I'll never forgive the Japanese! Then again, they make some rather nifty gadgets.